In the beginning, before destiny shows its face, mindset is formed in silence. High above the ancient African savanna, where the wind speaks wisdom to the mountains and the sun watches the earth patiently, two birds were born under the same sky, but not under the same purpose. One was an eagle. The other was a vulture. They both had wings. They both felt the same sun. They both heard the same thunder. But life would teach them very different lessons. The eagle was born on the edge of a high cliff. From the first day, danger surrounded it. The wind was strong. The height was terrifying. One wrong move, and it would fall into the valley below. But that cliff was not punishment. It was preparation. The mother eagle knew something the young eagle did not yet understand. Backhand index pointing right, comfort never builds strength. So she did not carry the eagle everywhere. She did not soften the wind. She did not lower the mountain. She let the eagle struggle. African proverb says, "The chick that stays under the hen forever will never learn the power of its wings." Not far away, beneath a large dead tree, the vulture was born. Its nest was low, safe, quiet. There was no strong wind, no risk of falling. Food scraps were always nearby, leftovers from the hunts of others. The vulture grew watching decay. It fed on remains. It waited instead of hunted. No struggle, no vision, no hunger for more. And slowly, without noticing, the vulture learned a dangerous lesson. Backhand index pointing right, someone else will always provide. This is how life works. Some people are raised on cliffs of responsibility. Others are raised under trees of excuses. Some grow through pressure. Others grow through dependency. Yet both believe they are living. But destiny is not decided by birth. It is decided by what you do with your wings. As days passed, the eagle began to look outward, toward the sky. The vulture looked downward, toward the ground. The eagle learned patience. The vulture learned waiting. The eagle learned focus. The vulture learned observation without action. And life whispered quietly. Backhand index pointing right, you become what you constantly look at. One day, the young eagle asked its mother, "Why is the sky so high? Why must I climb so much to survive?" The mother eagle replied, "Because everything valuable is hidden above fear." The vulture never asked such questions. It only asked, "When will something die today?" That question shaped its future. African wisdom says, "The path you admire today becomes the road you walk tomorrow." The eagle began early training. The mother pushed it from the nest, not to kill it, but to wake its wings. The eagle fell, panicked, screamed, then flapped. And for the first time, it felt the power inside itself. Fear almost broke it. But fear also revealed it. The vulture never experienced this moment. No one pushed it. No one challenged it. No one demanded growth. And so it mistook peace for progress. But hear this truth clearly. Fire a life without challenge is a life without capacity. As seasons changed, the eagle's wings grew wider. The vulture's wings grew heavier. One was being trained for altitude. The other was being trained for survival only. And life smiled silently, because it knew something was coming. A time when comfort would fail. A time when scraps would disappear. A time when only vision could save a soul. This is not just a story about birds. It is about you. Are you being raised on the cliff or under the tree? Are you training your wings or waiting for leftovers? Are you learning to rise or learning to complain? Because storms are coming. And storms do not ask what you believe. They only test what you have prepared. Comfort is a silent killer. It does not shout. It whispers. After the eagle began learning the discipline of the heights, the vulture settled deeper into the comfort of the lowlands. Every morning, it woke up without urgency. There was no reason to rush. No reason to improve. No reason to stretch its wings. Food would come. Something would die. Someone else would hunt. And when that happened, the vulture would arrive. African proverb says, "The man who waits for roasted yam would die hungry when firewood is scarce." The vulture did not see danger in this lifestyle. In fact, it felt smart. Why struggle when others are struggling? Why chase when scraps are enough? Why fly high when the ground is familiar? This is how comfort lies to the soul. Comfort says, backhand index pointing right, you are fine the way you are. Backhand index pointing right, tomorrow will be the same as today. Backhand index pointing right, why stress yourself? But comfort never tells you the full truth. It never tells you that what is easy today becomes impossible tomorrow. As days passed, the vulture noticed something. The eagle was often alone. While other birds gathered around carcasses, gossiping and feeding together, the eagle stayed distant, high, quiet, focused. The vulture laughed. "Why isolate yourself?" it mocked. "Why work so hard when life can be simple?" The eagle did not reply. Because eagles do not argue with vultures. They prepare. The vulture loved company. It loved noise. It loved validation. Surrounded by others like itself, it felt important. It felt successful. But hear this truth. Fire being surrounded does not mean you are supported. Fire being busy does not mean you are building. Fire. African wisdom says, many rats can live in one hole, but none will become a lion. Comfort has a system. First, it removes urgency. Then, it removes discipline. Then, it removes vision. Finally, it removes strength. By the time you notice, your wings are still there, but they no longer carry you. The vulture had wings, but it rarely used them fully. Short flights. Low glides. Never pushing beyond what felt safe. And slowly, something tragic happened. Its wings became heavy. Not physically, but spiritually. Because unused strength becomes weakness. The eagle, on the other hand, was uncomfortable daily. The wind was harsh. The sun was intense. Hunger sometimes visited. But every struggle stretched its capacity. African proverb says, the tree that fears the wind will never grow tall. One afternoon, the vulture watched the eagle fly into a dark storm. Thunder roared. Clouds thickened. Rain poured violently. The vulture shook its head. "Foolish bird," it said. "Storms destroy lives." But what the vulture did not understand was this. Firestorms do not destroy eagles. They reveal them. Fire. Inside the storm, the eagle did something strange. It did not fight the wind. It aligned with it. It allowed the storm to lift it higher, above the clouds, above the darkness, above the fear. And there, above the storm, the sun still shone. The vulture never saw that place. Because it had trained its eyes for decay, not destiny. Let this sink in. Backhand index pointing right, what you constantly feed on becomes what you constantly expect. Backhand index pointing right, if you feed on excuses, you expect failure. Backhand index pointing right, if you feed on vision, you expect greatness. The vulture fed on death. So it expected life to collapse. The eagle fed on challenge. So it expected life to rise. African proverb says, he who eats rotten meat cannot complain about stomach pain. Years passed. The land began to change. Rainfall reduced. Animals migrated. Carcasses became rare. For the first time, the vulture felt fear. The ground that once provided scraps was silent. No death. No leftovers. No easy survival. And panic entered its heart. The vulture tried to fly further. Tried to stay longer in the air. Tried to search wider territories. But its wings were not trained for endurance. This is the tragedy of comfort. Backhand index pointing right, when pressure finally comes, it is already too late to prepare. African wisdom says, you do not dig a well when thirst has finished you. The vulture looked up and saw the eagle, high, strong, unbothered, surveying vast lands. For the first time, envy replaced mockery. "How did you become like this?" the vulture cried. The eagle replied calmly, "I chose discomfort when comfort was available." This chapter is not about birds. It is about habits. It is about choices. It is about what you tolerate daily. Comfort today can be captivity tomorrow. Ease today can be emergency tomorrow. Fire greatness demands discomfort. Fire. Fire growth demands discipline. Fire. Fire destiny demands separation. Fire. Ask yourself honestly, what comfort is weakening your wings? What excuse is keeping you low? What fear is disguised as peace? Because soon, very soon, life will demand altitude. And only trained wings will survive. Pain is a teacher, but only the willing learn from it. The eagle did not become strong by accident. Strength was not a gift, it was forged. Every powerful wing stroke was born from resistance. Every moment of balance came from instability. While the vulture avoided storms, the eagle studied them. African proverb says, "The blacksmith does not fear fire, he knows it shapes iron." When storms gathered, other birds hid. They complained. They cursed the sky. But the eagle moved closer to the wind. Not because it enjoyed pain, but because it understood purpose. The eagle knew this truth. Backhand index pointing right, what challenges me is training me. Inside the storm, the wind was violent. Rain struck like arrows. Thunder shook the heavens. The eagle's wings burned with effort. Many times, it almost gave up. But each time, it remembered the cliff. It remembered the fall. It remembered the first fear. And it kept flying. This is how greatness is built. Not in comfort. Not in applause. Not in ease. But in repetition under pressure. African wisdom says, "The drum that produces sweet sound is beaten many times." The vulture never learned this lesson. At the first sign of hardship, it retreated. At the first discomfort, it stopped. At the first failure, it blamed the environment. And slowly, something dangerous happened. It became afraid of pain. But hear this carefully. Fire, the fear of pain is more destructive than pain itself. Fire. The eagle faced pain early, so pain lost its power over it. The vulture avoided pain early, so pain controlled it later. This is the law of life. Backhand index pointing right, face difficulty now, or be crushed by it later. As time passed, the storms grew stronger. Climate shifted. Winds changed direction. Only birds with adaptability survived. The eagle learned to adjust its wings. It learned timing. It learned patience. Because storms don't just test strength. They test wisdom. African proverb says, "He who knows how to bend will not be broken by the wind." One storm was different. It lasted days. Even the eagle felt tired. Its muscles screamed. Its vision blurred. In that moment, a thought came. What if I fall? But another thought followed. What if I rise even higher? And that is the difference between winners and quitters. Winners ask, what is possible? Quitters ask, what if it fails? The eagle leaned into the storm. And something miraculous happened. The stronger the wind became, the higher the eagle was lifted. Above the clouds. Above the darkness. Above the chaos. Where silence ruled. Where clarity returned. Where the sun still shone. This is the place only the disciplined reach. A place where problems look small. A place where fear loses its voice. A place where vision becomes clear. The vulture never reached this place. Because it trained for survival. Not for elevation. Pain changed the eagle. Its eyes became sharper. Its instinct stronger. Its confidence unshakable. Because confidence is not loud, it is earned. African wisdom says, the man who has crossed many rivers does not fear water. The vulture, watching from below, grew bitter. Why do storms favor you? It asked. The eagle replied, they don't favor me. I trained for them. Pause, slow. This chapter is not about storms in the sky. It is about storms in life. Rejection, failure, delay, loss, loneliness. These are not punishments. They are training grounds. Fire pain is not proof of failure. Fire pain is proof of growth in progress. Fire. If life is hard right now, it may be because your wings are expanding. If the wind is strong, it may be because you are meant to rise higher. Ask yourself, am I avoiding storms or learning from them? Am I complaining or adapting? Am I breaking or becoming? Because one truth remains. Backhand index pointing right, only trained wings survive strong winds. Greatness is lonely. Not because it rejects people, but because few can endure the path. As the eagle grew stronger, something else happened. It grew alone, not abandoned, not rejected, but separated. While other birds gathered in noisy groups, the eagle flew alone. While the vulture stayed among crowds, sharing complaints and waiting for scraps, the eagle chose silence. African proverb says, the hunter who wants a big game walks alone. Solitude is misunderstood. Many think it is weakness. Many think it is sadness. Many think it is punishment. But solitude is often discipline in disguise. The eagle did not isolate because it hated others. It isolated because it loved its future. Discipline requires saying no to comfort, to noise, to distractions. Discipline requires routines that nobody applauds. Discipline requires doing what is necessary when it is inconvenient. And this is where most wings fail. Because discipline is boring before it becomes powerful. The vulture avoided solitude. Silence made it uncomfortable. Alone time forced reflection, and reflection exposed emptiness. So it stayed busy, stayed social, stayed distracted. But hear this truth. Fire distraction is the enemy of destiny. Fire. African wisdom says, the rat that follows everyone will never find its own hole. The eagle spent hours gliding in silence, observing, practicing precision, learning when to strike and when to wait. This is where mastery is born. Not in chaos, not in crowds, but in quiet repetition. While others slept, the eagle trained. While others talked, the eagle observed. While others waited, the eagle prepared. And slowly, without announcement, it became dangerous in the best way. Because true power does not announce itself. The vulture watched from afar. You think you are better than us? It shouted. The eagle did not respond. Because discipline does not explain itself. Results do. The vulture mistook solitude for arrogance. But solitude was simply focus. African proverb says, the river that flows quietly cuts the deepest path. There is a price to rising alone. Misunderstanding, loneliness, doubt from others, doubt within yourself. The eagle felt all of it. There were days it questioned its path. Days it missed companionship. Days it wondered if the sacrifice was worth it. But it stayed disciplined. Because discipline is choosing long-term vision over short-term comfort. The vulture chose differently. It chose familiarity. It chose approval. It chose ease. And in choosing ease, it unknowingly chose limitation. Let this truth settle in your spirit. Backhand index pointing right. If you want a life few have, you must be willing to live like few live. African wisdom says, the palm tree grows tall because it stands alone. The eagle rose higher than before. Not just in the sky, but in understanding. It learned that not everyone will understand your journey, Not everyone will support your discipline. Not everyone will celebrate your growth. And that is okay. Because destiny is personal. This chapter speaks directly to you. If you feel alone right now, if your circle is shrinking, if your path feels misunderstood, you may not be lost. You may be elevating. Fire isolation can be preparation. Fire silence can be sharpening. Fire loneliness can be leadership training. Fire